Hey guys, welcome back. We're finishing up Target 10A today. And today we're going to kind of really get into what we want to do with these angles that we've been drawing. And we're going to use these angles to find the sine or the cosine of them when we don't have a right triangle. Okay, so we have special angles, and they're listed in this table here. It's 0 degrees, which is the same as 0 radians, 30 degrees, which is equal to pi over 6 radians, 45 degrees, which is pi over 4 radians, 60 degrees, which is pi over 3 radians, and 90 degrees, which is pi over 2 radians. Okay, and those are really our reference angles. Okay, if you notice, our reference angles have never been bigger than that. That's all of our special angles, and then we just use what we know about our different angles, which quadrant they're in, where they are, to find the sine and cosine. Now, these numbers that we write in here, you will have to memorize, but I will give you a trick for memorizing them. Okay? So, our trick to memorize them with creating this table is to start. We are going to place a 2 in the denominator of each of these. So I'm going to do over 2, over 2, over 2, over 2, over 2. That's not leaving a lot of room. Sorry about that. Over 2, over 2, over 2, over 2, over 2. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a square root in the numerator. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with sine. I'm going to start with 0. I'm going to count up from this side. With cosine, I'm going to start with 0 and count up from this side. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cosine, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify. Okay? The square root of 0 is 0, and 0 divided by 2 is just 0. So the sine of 0 degrees, or 0 radians, is 0. 35 degrees. The square root of 1 is 1, and I get 1/2. 45 degrees, or pi over 4, square root of 2, doesn't simplify. So that's just square root 2 over 2. Same thing with 60 degrees. Square root 3 over 2 is just square root 3 over 2. Square root 4 over 2, well, the square root of 4 is 2 over 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay? So we have 0, 1/2, square root 2 over 2, square root 3 over 2, and 1. Doing the same thing the other way, the square root of 0 over 2, same as this one, is just 0. Square root of 1 over 2 is just 1/2. Square root of 2 over 2 is square root 2 over 2. Square root 3 over 2 is square root 3 over 2, and square root 4 over 2 is 2 over 2, which is 1. Okay. So then you will have to have these memorized, but drawing this table is very helpful, and you just count up and count down. The next thing we have here to help us decide what our sine and cosine is going to be is this chart, ASCC, which stands for all students take Puzzle. It's just a nice mnemonic to remember what we're looking at in each quadrant. And it really tells us if our trig ratio, our sine or our cosine, or our tangent, which we're not really going to look at too much in this unit, but is it positive or negative? Okay, so the A does really stand for all. All are positive. So both sine and cosine. S stands for sine is positive. Only sine, so that means cosine and tangent are negative in that quadrant. The T stands for tangent is positive. Okay, so that means sine and cosine are negative. And C stands for cosine is positive. So again, sine and tangent are negative in that quadrant. Okay. So using these two things, we can find the trig ratios of lots of different angles. Let's look at some examples. Let's start with 210 degrees. I'm going to start by drawing my angle. Again, we have 0, 90, 70, this goes back to 360. All right, so 210 is going to be right about here. So I want to find my reference angle. Your reference angle is 210 minus 180, which is 30 degrees. So now I think I'm going to be looking at sine of I'm going to be looking at 30 degrees. The sine is 1/2. The cosine is square root 3 over 2. And 210 equals 1/2. Cosine of 210 equals square root 3 over 2. That's why you have to have that table memorized so you can answer these questions. Then the last thing I want to look at is I am in the third quadrant with this angle. So are these going to be positive or negative? In the third quadrant, tangent is positive, so that means sine and cosine are both negative. So really what this is it's negative 1/2 and negative square root 3 over 2. And that is our answer. And we are done. Let's go ahead and look at number 2. 120 degrees. Okay. 120 is going to be right about here. My reference angle is 180 minus 120, which is 60 degrees. Okay. So now I want to find the sine of 120 and the cosine of 120. Well, because my reference angle is 60 degrees, looking at my chart, with 60 degrees, my sine is 33 over 2, and my cosine is 1/2. Last thing, right, again, check your signs. I am in the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, sine is positive, so that means sine is positive and cosine is negative. Positive, negative. Those are my answers. Done. Okay, so we're really just adding on one small step to what we were doing yesterday with graphing our angles and drawing in our reference angles. All right, looking at our next page, just a few more examples. We'll skip number 3. Let's do number 4. With 180 degrees. That's kind of an easier angle to draw, right? It's going this way. Our reference angle for 180 degrees, well, it's closest to 180 degrees, and it's right on top of it. So our reference angle is 0. It's 180 minus 180. So our reference angle for that is 0. So finding the sine of 0 and the cosine of 0. Well, it tells us on the previous page, if you'd like to look at it, that sine of 0 is 0 and cosine of 0 is 1. When it's on the axes, you still have to think about, am I going to be positive or negative? And it's really just the axis tells you. This is our negative x-axis, so cosine is going to be negative there. If it was down here, sine would be negative. Here, cosine positive, here, sine positive. But if whichever one is 1, if it's on a negative axis, it's going to be negative. If it's on a positive axis, it's going to be positive. Let's look at some of our radian sections. Number 5, 2 pi over 3 Start by drawing my axis. I'm going to cut this into thirds. Remember, the y-axis does not count for thirds. I'm going 2 of them. So what is my reference angle? I have one more third. Right, so my reference angle is pi over 3. So, again, I'm not going to flip back for get all messed up. But sine of 2 pi over 3 is 3 over 2, and cosine is 1/2. Alright, then the last thing we have to do for this problem is decide what our signs are going to be. So for here, right, we're in the second quadrant. The second quadrant is F, right? And all students take calculus. So sine is positive, that means cosine is negative. So it's 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Moving on to number 6. Let's draw our angle. With 7 pi over 4, I'm going to split things into fourths. So this one's y-axis, but yeah, the y-axis does count. And I will continue into the bottom as well. I'm going to count 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And down here in the fourth quadrant. This is my reference angle. It is one section out of 4. So I have sine and cosine. Sine of 7 pi over 4. And cosine of 7 pi over 4. You can go back to your reference table. And sine of pi over 4 and cosine of pi over 4 are both square root 2 over 2. Then I want to look in the fourth quadrant. Right, again, I have all students take calculus. This is C. Cosine is positive. That means sine is negative. So I have negative square root 2 over 2 and square root 2 over 2. Let's do 2 more examples. Really great. Number 7 is pi over 6. Making my lines. I'm doing just 1 pi over 6. That is right here. So my reference angle, I should write that so both of used to it. Reference angle is simply pi over 6. Looking for my sine and my cosine. Sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. Cosine of pi over 6 is square root 3 over 2. And we are looking for both the whether it is positive or negative. And again, we have all students take calculus. This is A. That means it is positive for both the sine and cosine. Remember, A means all. Last one, 3 pi over 2. If I am cutting these in half, and I am just going along the axes, 3 pi over 2 is 1, 2, 3 pi over 2. My reference angle, I can go either direction, right? It's halfway in between. Does not matter. So my reference angle is simply pi over 2. Looking for my sine and my cosine. sine of 3 pi over 2 is, or sorry, the sine of pi over, of my reference angle is 1. The cosine of my reference angle is 0. Again, I'm in a negative axis, right? Down is negative, so that sine is going to become negative 1. And that is it. Alright, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day.